Brad Treliving, it looks like he took his checkbook out. The richest contract, is it? I'm not sure. As we look here, I've not seen. Is it official? It's expected to be official.
It's official. The richest contract in Toronto Maple Leafs history, $92 million. And look, I certainly, because Flames fans will gag when I say this, but even structure and length wise, it's not all that dissimilar to the Jonathan Huberdeau one.
It's very similar. The players are not,
the full no move, no trade, plus the
you son of a
the
bitch.
signing bonus, $69 million. Yeah. And it's a lot. That is a veritable windfall for William Nylander. I just think when I look at this deal, and you didn't ask, but when I look at it, I feel like they're paying the absolute ceiling. William Nylander now next season, 5th highest cap hit in the league. Mm-hmm. The big thing I keep coming back to, and I understand that the Leafs were kind of backed into this corner because they're saying, well, look how special he's been this year. We don't want to lose this guy for nothing. We can't let him walk for free. But at the same time, 5th overall cap hit in the league. And if you were to draft the players in the league, like is William Nylander going in the top 20?
Probably at the end of that, if at all, Frank. But I mean, is it fair to compare to guys that signed deals 7 years ago? That's not really apples to apples. Like,
but okay. So how about David Pastrnak?
Yeah,
David Pastrnak his deal was in March.
Yeah,
it was 9 months ago, and everyone knew what the cap was doing.
Yeah.
So there's no change here. Why on earth does William Nylander command $2 million more than David Pastrnak?
Well, it doesn't really, I mean, the point you make is a good one, right? But it doesn't really work in a vacuum like that. Every team has different, like they have different committed dollars. What were the Leafs' options? To play him this season and let him go, to trade him, or to sign him? They have their own salary cap issues, or whatever you want to call it, their own salary cap situation moving forward. Cap goes up. They will have to make some decisions, but I don't think you can just look and say, well, we are going to pay this guy based on how good he is in the entire league of National Hockey League players, right? Like,
he's not signing that deal. Yeah.
You can't.
Okay. So let's take it a step further then, because I disagree. The next team can only offer him 7 years now.
Yep.
Who's paying him even close to that total dollars?
Wouldn't Chicago pay him $13 a year?
Why would they? Do you want to be you want to hate yourself in 5 years?
Because they got 22,000 fans and a superstar at center ice. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good investment, but I think someone would give him close to that on the market. That's what I'm saying.
So you think Chicago would give him 13 times 7?
Wow, I'm just saying, for like, if you go to a team like Seattle that lacks a superstar, if you look to spots where teams want to compete quickly, like, the cap is higher than it's ever been. Comparing him to deals signed 5-6 years ago don't make sense. He's making $250,000 more than Pastrnak. That's it. And I'd rather have Pastrnak, but it's not a $2 million overpay, is it?
I think, I mean, look at last year and how special it was. Not special, but how good it was. And then look at this year, and then look at all the other years that he's had.
But it looks like he's getting better to me.
So they got some surplus value off of the current contract at $7 million. It wasn't like extraordinarily, amazing surplus value.
No, I understand what you're saying. You never want to pay top of the market in anything, but sometimes that's just the position that you find yourself in. Was he going to sign in the off season? We don't know that. He's a year away from unrestricted free agency. He might be betting on himself. You know that you have Tavares eventually coming off of the cap.
2 years,
right? I think cap-wise, they're fine. Like, they're relatively fine. You can make the case, okay, we're taking the $4.5 million increase from this summer that's projected, and we're putting it right in William Nylander's jeans. Fine. Then you've got to get through 1 year of Tavares at 11, and then you probably ask him to take a hometown discount, knock him down to 6 or 7. That's $4 or $5 additional $1 million a year, plus another increase 2 years from now, meaning that's an additional $10 million that you didn't have. Plus this year, you've got Brody coming off the books, Domi, Bertuzzi. You've got to figure out your goaltending situation. But none of this, it's great that you've kept Nylander, but let's go back to the same sort of point I was making about the Flames a few weeks ago when I joined you guys before the holidays. And I said, you're not winning with these guys. What would be the argument to keep any of them, maybe outside of Hanifin? With the Leafs, they haven't accomplished anything yet.
No, but I mean, you also told us that Bobrovsky was great last year, and he hadn't accomplished anything until he did. No one gets over the hump until they do. Ovechkin, you couldn't win with him until you did.
He hadn't accomplished anything yet.
No, you're just saying you can't win with these guys. Like, well, look up, they're always over 100 points. If they get a month of 930 goaltending, why couldn't they be in the final last year? It's not like Florida was markedly better than them.
I personally, I think their issue is they haven't solved their defense, because the reason they can't solve it is because they're not balanced properly between forward and defense on the cap hits. And now they got a lucky get out of jail free card from John Klingberg and his injury, being banished to Robidas Island. And they have a window now, potentially with Samsonov's deal, to go out and right some of those wrongs. And that's why it was really important to get Nylander done now, so that if you want to go trade for a defenseman that has term, you can do that. But as currently constituted at this exact moment in time, I don't have the Toronto Maple Leafs as a cup contender.
That's fine. They got a deadline. They got cap space. I mean, I guess my question would be, what would you do if you were Brad living here? Because he's not signing the number you want him at. You know that, right? Like, Nylander's not coming back for 9.5.
I think the play, if you're going to rewind the tape while everyone was in, evaluation mode and everyone's getting their feet wet, what really would have made sense going back to last summer would have been to move him then while his value is incredibly high. And then I would have restructured my defense. But that's, and
you can do that this summer with Marner.
You could, but it seems like they're pretty set on keeping the same four guys together.
But that would change now with a new contract. Like, listen, I don't really I'm not invested heavily in this one way or the other. I just kind of look at it.
I'm not invested at all.
This is a player who had an unbelievable season and a half, couple seasons. You can sign him, you can trade him, or you can let him go and then take the cap. Those are the options. And I think that you have to look at it, because they have not won doesn't mean they're incapable of winning. Are they a perfect team right now? They are not. Their goaltending, as you said, is an issue in their defense. But it's always a kind of a rolling, it's a process constantly. And what you have right now, what's to say you can't move Mitch Marner in the offseason for that defense that you need, or whatever the case would be. I just think it's because we went through the same thing here with Gaudreau. Oh, you should have traded Gaudreau. Well, how are you going to do that? Or you should have signed Gaudreau the season before. Well, at that time, everybody was saying, get this guy out of here because he can't win in the playoffs and he disappears when the games matter, and then he has a great season, and you should have paid this guy. Well, you were saying we should have traded this guy, not signed the guy. It's an imperfect thing. I just look at it and it's you can sign him or you can lose him or trade him. That's all it comes down to. And I think the Leafs are better with this guy than without him. I don't like trades where you're trading away the best player in the deal. Sometimes it works out. You look at Winnipeg with the Dubois deal. That's worked out pretty good. I think Dubois is probably the best player, although he's not playing like it. But I just think with the cap going up, and that Tavares' money is coming off, and you've got a Marner out if you can trade him. Who would you rather have, Marner or Nylander moving forward?
This is what I thought too. Like, when you see this commitment, doesn't it make you think about one or the other?
I get where you're at, and I know who I would pick. I'd pick Nylander 10 times out of 10 over Marner.
So then they kept their second best player.
Okay. I'm not a believer of paying the absolute ceiling. That's my only thing. And if you're going to get strong-armed, I don't think there's ever a bad. I get this whole thing of, you can't lose him for nothing, and this idea of asset management. Yeah. I just think teams get way too attached, and that you mentioned a process and how many different ways you could skin a cat. And I get that it's a somewhat watered down league. And when you have elite talent, you try and keep it. I'm just like, when you already are giving the 8th year, I'm not a big believer in spending absolute the top of market value just to keep guys. I think there's different ways to do it. And I think for a team that has, you're right, because they haven't won doesn't mean they can't. The Washington Capitals finally broke through after 10 years of good teams. The St. Louis Blues broke through. At some point, will it shock anyone if the Leafs break through? The answer is no. But I personally, I don't think there's ever a bad thing in terms of saying goodbye. Like, it's okay. Teams want the security blanket. They want the comfort of knowing that they have these guys. And had things worked out differently, like had the Huberdeau part of this deal not been there and the contract that was signed after the fact, if you're looking at it on the whole, like, how glad would Flames fans feel right now watching Johnny Gaudreau play that you're not locked into a crazy expensive deal for him?
Oh yeah, and you'd also vastly prefer Nylander to Huberdeau, to be fair.
Okay, but going back a few years in time and now knowing how much of a premium Nylander's making on Gaudreau, had you taken Johnny Gaudreau at age 26 or whatever Nylander is, and you put Nylander next to him, which one would you have wanted to have at this exact moment in time? I probably would have taken Gaudreau. You take Nylander?
I think I'd take Nylander. Watching him in the playoffs and
I like that.
In that market, he is a guy that it's water off a duck's back, and not many guys can do it in that market. And chatting with people around the organization, that's the difference maker for them, is that I think he was a softer player early in his career. I don't worry about that now. He's not great defensively. He's an elite offensive player. Those are the most expensive players in the league. And tip your cap to William Nylander. It's his contract year. He's having a career year, and he's months away from free agency. He's not in the discount taking business right now. And, you'd hope you'd have a Pasternak situation, but you don't, because you haven't had the success that Boston's had. And you didn't have Bergerons and Charas and Marchands taking less to stay a part of that team. That culture's not there in Toronto. And so what you're left with is paying market rates. Like, this is kind of what he's going to get in AAV. So it's, you want me or not?
So what does that say about, I think you made an incredibly important point about all of those. You're going to have 4 guys next year, all in the top 10 in cap hits. What does that say about that group, that no one is willing? He's the first guy to go the distance and take the full 8 years outside of Tavares, which doesn't really count because it was before all those other guys came
7 years. Yeah.
But what does it say about their group and their culture? I don't know that it says anything. I think there is a question to be asked of, are these guys money hungry that just want to see themselves one up each other to get to the top, and team success be damned?
What it says is no one's giving hometown deals there. At least, guys like Wayne Simmons and, sure, Giordano, the depth guys might give you a Toronto discount, but the stars aren't. And if you're their agent, you're probably saying, hey, maximize earnings, my job description.
I totally get it. My point is, you've got a finite window to win where you can fit everyone, where everyone's at the prime of their career arc, and would have $80 million as opposed to 92. Would it change your life at all? I mean, it's easy to say because I'm not the one giving up $12 million, but at some point you have to ask the question, who is actually here for the team and who's here for every last dollar? And trust me, I'm someone that has advocated time. I want players to get as much as they can. But when you have 4 forwards inside the top 10 in league salary caps, it's kind of problematic.
Yeah. I saw somebody had put out this morning that the Vegas Golden Knights were the first team with a player on their roster, whatever it was, making more than 10 million. I don't know. I mean, it's now
first team to win a cup. Yep.
So yeah, to win a cup. So that's
cap goes up.
And I want to move on because I know people aren't here to listen about Leaf stuff, but I just want, so if it's 11.5, what's the number where, if you're unhappy with it, what's the number that you'd be happy with? Is it 10? Is it 10 and a half? Is it 9.75? At the end of the day, is it top dollar? It is, but how far away are you from realistic fair, or what you consider fair dollar, right? And if you're the team, are you going to potentially lose a guy who looks like he's coming along for $1.5 million a year, you probably try it. We'll find that $1.5 million somewhere else.
I
May
totally
not
get where
work,
they're at.
yeah.
I do. I'm just saying I'm not a big believer in paying very top of market for a player who's at the top of his ceiling, I think.
What the, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just is anyone smiling more than Sam Reinhart right now, who's on pace for like 60 goals?
Sam Reinhart, probably Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, Elias is an R, but yeah, a year away. So same forces essentially. Yeah.
I mean, if Nylander's 11-5 and you've got a franchise center who I think you meant, like, I think a key part of this is ceiling. I don't think Pettersson's even close to scratching his. And I'm looking at him going, that number starts with a 12 plus all day long, even on a 5-year deal.
Yep. I don't look at it as like, wow, these guys are getting too much. I look at it as like, man, like Pastrnak left a lot of money on the table. McKinnon left a lot of money on the table. If McDavid asked for 15 5 years ago, they would have given it to him. These other guys are all leaving money on the table, and you can say, look,
why aren't they in Toronto?
Well, because they got better agents, I'd say.
It looks like they're trying to one up each other.
Like I look at McDavid taking less in Edmonton and thinking, why is he taking less so that they can overpay Nurse by $3 million? That doesn't make sense to me. They should be taking discounts to play with him.
But that's the spot that you work yourself into is if you're a player, you're going, hey, wait, I'm going to leave. Let's just say hypothetically that this season brought Nylander an extra $12 million total based on the way that he's played. If you're Nylander, you're going, wait, so I'm going to leave that behind and in your hands, and I have no say in how you're going to go out and spend it and no proof that it's going to be worthwhile. Aren't I better just taking the 12 million myself?
Totally. That's my whole point. The stars are the ones that should get paid. Don't give Darnell Nurse 9.25. Okay. Give McDavid 15.
But so where I know that he's been their MVP this year, and not to belabor this, Dino, but like, where is he on the Leafs star pecking order?
2.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be the thing, right? You almost feel like maybe the
heading
Leafs
into
have made that
he
determination.
definitely wasn't 2.
Yeah. The Leafs have probably made that determination, right?
Yeah, and I think he was better in the playoffs and last year than Marner. I think it's been a better year and a half, and it looks like Nylander has taken a step, whereas Marner's game, you're kind of like, where's he at? Where are the assists? Where's the playmaking? Where are the zone entries? It's not the same player for Marner, and I almost felt like this was a referendum on which guy are we going to keep, and when you give this guy all the signing bonus and all the term, maybe Marner is available this summer. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long-form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.